Hey guys, welcome back. I was supposed to be working on my High Fleet Typhon Harridan this week, but unfortunately I ran into a little bit of a roadblock when it came to magnetising the model, and I didn't have the correct size drill bit, so I ordered the part on Amazon, which was going to take a few days. So I thought in the meantime I'd paint up a quick Craftworld Iyanden Wraith blade. It's a really simple technique that gives a really nice striking finish. So let's get into it. So the first thing I did was prime the entire model in white, apart from the helmet, which I primed in black. And then starting with the main body of the model, I sprayed on a full base coat of Army Painter Impish Rouge. This is just the pink that I used, but any kind of bright pink would do here for the base coat. And you could also potentially brush this on rather than airbrush it. However, you will be needing an airbrush later on in the process. Next up, I'm going to be using white ink to apply a Senathil highlight over the entire model. And as always, you can use any white you want here. The main aim here is just to apply a white highlight over the top of the model, which is going to give us a nice base to apply our yellow paint, while still leaving all of the recesses in the bright pink colour. And as usual with the Senathil highlight, you just want to come in from the top of the model and from 45 degrees as well. And if you've done your Senathil highlight correctly, when you look at your model from the top, it should appear completely as white, and when you look at it from the bottom, it should appear completely as pink. Next, it's time to apply the main yellow for the armour colour, and I'm going to be using Army Painter Maize Yellow, which is a really nice vivid yellow, which is exactly what I'm looking for. And I'm just going to airbrush this onto all of the white areas that I created with the Senathil highlight. And again, leaving in all of the pink recesses. And a quick note here on my choice of using speed paints, especially Army Painter. The colour's great and it works brilliant out of the airbrush, but Army Painter speed paints suffer horribly from reactivation, and this did come to bite me in the ass a little bit later on in the process. So just keep that in mind when you're making your choice of yellow here. My advice would be to steer clear of the Army Painter speed paints for this one. Next, it's time to apply a magenta wash over the entire model, and for that I'm going to be using Army Painter Magenta Tone. And I'm going to be mixing that in 1 part Magenta Tone to 1 part Glaze Medium. And that's just going to help it flow that little bit better, and also make it a little bit less harsh. And you just need to apply this to the entire model, making sure that you take the time to wick up any excess tone that tends to gather towards the bottom parts of the model. And while all that wash is drying, I'm going to tackle the helmet. And to do that, I'm going to be using the Army Painter Vivid Blue Triad, more specifically Royal Blue, Arctic Gem and Bright Sapphire. And this is just the same technique that I used for the Craftworld Iyanden helmets, where we start off with the darkest colour and apply some spot highlights to the centre of the helmet and the very top tip. and then work my way through the brighter colours, airbrushing on a smaller amount each time until we get to the final highlight of Bright Sapphire, where I'm just applying a very light spray to the tips of these areas. And I also sprayed up the base in exactly the same colours and technique as well. Next up, I'm going to be using the Army Painter Fanatics Greedy Gold to paint in the hilt and the handle of both of the swords. But you could use any gold you wanted here. And also silver would work as well. The choice is really up to you. Just make sure you get a nice solid coat of whatever metallic you choose. Next up, I'm going to be glazing in the purpley magenta swords, and to do that I'm going to be using a split triad. I'm going to start off in the purple triad for the first two colours, and then I'm going to switch to the magenta triad to finish off the sword with the final three colours. So starting from a black base coat, I'm going to glaze in the darkest colour, which is Terrestial Titan, and I'm just going to apply this to the entire sword. We're then going to move on to the next colour, which is Alien Purple, and we're just going to glaze that on over the previous colour, starting off higher up the sword, ensuring that we leave the previous colour still visible, and then just drag the glaze to the tip of the sword. We're then going to switch to the magenta triad for the next three colours, which will be Warlock Magenta, Enchanted Pink, and Diviner Light. And we're just going to follow the exact same process as we did before, making sure that we start off higher up on the sword on each colour change, and just glaze it down to the tip. And if you find that the colour transition isn't smooth enough, or is too harsh for your liking, then you can always just go back in with the previous colour and glaze it back up. And then just continue this process until you get to the final colour, which is Diviner Light in the magenta triad. And as this colour is quite a stark jump from the previous colour, you just really want to use this to apply an edge highlight to all of the edges on the sword. Next, I applied Army Painter's Strong Tone to all the metallics on the hilt and the handle of the swords, and I just used this straight out of the bottle with no dilution. And once that was dried, I painted in all of the gems on the model, including the 2 on the chest, the 4 that are on the swords, and also the ones that were on my custom bases as well. I'm not going to go into the full detail of how I painted the gems in this video, as I've already covered that in my previous Craftworld Iyanden videos. So if you're looking for guidance on how to paint up the gems, you can always check out one of my Iyanden videos. And the last part of the model that needs painted is the loincloth, and to do that I just used Army Painter Matte White. And again here, any white of your choice would do. However, this is where I encountered issues with the Army Painter reactivation, and to cut a long story short, it took me about 5 coats of paint and a coat of varnish as well, and then more coats of paint to finally get the white to apply without showing any of the yellow bleed through from the Army Painter speed paints. So hopefully you don't have the same issues as I did here and you're able to get a nice solid white within 1 or 2 coats. But Army Painter speed paint reactivation issues aside, the last step before basing the model is to apply some shade to the loincloth, and to do that I'm just going to be using the same Army Painter dark tone, again mixed in 1:1 with glaze medium. And once that's been applied, the model is complete and ready for a coat of matte varnish, which should take away any of the shine from all of the washes that I've been using. But apart from that, the model is done and it's looking nice and vibrant and ready for the tabletop. And as always, I hope you found this video useful, and if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below. Next up, all going well, will be the High Fleet Typhon Harridan. So hopefully there are no other issues, and I can get that assembled and painted over the next couple of weeks. So if you're interested in seeing how that goes, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. But until then, happy painting, and I'll see you in the next one.